Hi, my name is Baylie Barker, and today I will be speaking with Miss Shirley Schell about strong women. Miss Shirley, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase strong women?
To me, that phrase simply means a woman with an internal fortitude. It's not something you can see, it is what's working on the inside, the strength. And we often think of that as strength is manifested outwardly. But when I think of a strong woman, and when I think of women that I consider strong women, I think of those with an integrity of character. They're honest, they're forthright, they don't play games, they don't try to pull tricks. They are just what they are. What you see is what you get. They have a resoluteness of will, which means that they have decided on some things. I have resolved to be, to do, to not be, to have. There's a will there that's ironclad. I also think of that indomitable spirit that works on the inside that is enabling in a lot of ways that you just, I wonder how they carry on. You know, in the face of what we can see going on around them, yet they're standing tall. They're maintaining their composure. When everything else around them is falling apart, they still have it together. And it's that indomitable spirit that says, I am planted, I am strong, I can do this. And then there's a resistive mindset. I think of it as being able to put aside doubt, being able to ward off discouragement, to say, no matter what comes, I'm standing. When I was young, my father was a pastor, and he was a very proud man. He just had so much self-pride. And he would always say to me, I was the oldest one there in the house, and he would always say, no matter what comes your way, you stand. You stand, you know, I say throw your shoulders back and hold your head up high. That's standing, that's strength. And it's not running roughshod over anyone. It's not competing with anybody. It is simply that internal fortitude that enables a strong woman to stand.
Who is someone with that internal fortitude that inspires you, and why?
My first inspiration was my mother. She was strong. She was just the most gentle person you wanted to know. But inside, I think there was steel. She could stand and take care of business. She could take care of anything. And she was a rock and a pillar. Today, when I think of strength, I think of a strong woman. I think of my daughter. She has had to learn to operate in a world where she may be the only one that looks like her, and high expectations from a high-powered job, maintain a family, exercise her faith, and she's just a complete package of a woman. And all of the things that I said prior, she exemplifies those things, and she stands tall, and I'm inspired by her.
How has faith and family shaped who you are?
Oh, faith is who I am. The song says, praise is who I am and what I do. That's faith. It has been and continues to be the pillar of my life. From a little girl, I remember my grandmother being the one that, would nurture us in the Word of God. And I remember when my father gave his life to Christ, and I said, wow, if being a Christian can affect that kind of change, I want that for my life as well, the rest of my life. And so, coming from a family of pastors and ministers and preachers and teachers, that has been my life. That's all I know. That's all I want to know. And it wasn't forced. It was made available. I was exposed to it. I embraced my faith. It's just everything. It makes me who I am. Family, don't mess with my family. I am truly a family-oriented person. I gave up a career to stay home and raise my children because my spouse was on the road and we had good child care. But I remember my mother saying to me I needed to be with my children. And so I have never regretted the time devoted to my family. And I think family is just a springboard for everything else good in life.
In the past, older women would take out time to teach and help mold young females. Do you think that type of teaching is lost? If so, how do we find it and begin to impart it again?
I don't know that it's lost. I think it's not as prevalent as it used to be, only because you have so many attention grabbers. You have, the social networking now. I mean, it's just, how do you compete with that? And so you have a lot of our young people perhaps that would go to an older person for advice. They can just go to YouTube or go to some other social media platform and get the information they think they need. So I would say that greater effort is needed to make sure that older women such as myself make ourselves available to younger women, let them know that we are still there. And we just have to get in the game and compete with the rest of them.
What is one word of wisdom you share with this generation?
Ooh. Probably know what you don't know. Know when to ask for help. Find somebody you trust and whose word you can rely on. Take advice from people who you don't want to disappoint, because then you'll heed their advice. If it's good advice, you'll heed it. And just be open to leading and teaching and learning what you don't know.
Well, Miss Shirley, it's been a pleasure with speaking to you so far. We're going to take a little break and continue this conversation when we come back.
Embrace equity. That is the theme of this year's International Women's Day. And it leads to an important question. What is equity? To talk about this topic, I like to talk about apples and bananas. Imagine that you are babysitting two children, and they are hungry, they'd like a snack. You go to the fruit bowl, and you start to pick up 2 apples to give them to each child. However, you remember at the last moment that one of the children is allergic to apples. So instead, you reach for 1 apple and 1 banana. In that way, you're being fair because you still give 1 piece of fruit to each child. But you're also being equitable because you're giving each child a legitimate way of satisfying their hunger. If you had gone for 2 apples, the child who's allergic to the apple would, on the surface, have a way to satisfy their hunger, but they couldn't do that without getting ill. So in this way, you're being fair, you're giving each child a piece of fruit, but you're also giving them something that is in line with their individual needs so that they can be successful. That, in a nutshell, is equity. When it comes to equity in the workplace, pay is an important place to start. Making sure that women and people from other traditionally underrepresented and marginalized backgrounds are not paid less for doing the same work. it's important to look at your data, really analyze those figures, and see if there are pay gaps. If there are, put in processes and fixes to address this. Also, parental leave, making this accessible to people of all genders and normalizing it for people of all genders to take it up. This helps make sure that the burden of childcare does not fall unequally on mothers' shoulders and act as an impediment as they progress in their career. So, what can you and your business commit to in order to embrace equity?
Welcome back. We're going to continue our conversation with Miss Shirley on Strong Women. So the theme for International Women's Month is Embrace Equity. What does this statement mean to you, and how important is it?
When I first looked at that, what immediately came to mind, without further study on it, was equality. But equity and equality are two different things. Equity embraces fairness and justice. Equality says the same. And so embrace equity says to me that since we all started from a different point, that fact has to be taken into consideration, and then adjustments have to be made. Equality just says, everybody gets the same. So if I'm in a race and I start at the 5-yard line and you're at the 1-yard line, who do you think's going to win the race? And so equity says to me that we have to recognize our differences, our different starting points, and then we have to make adjustments. In other words, in summation, give every woman what she needs to succeed, what she needs to reach her goals, what she needs to be her best. And as you talk about internationally, well, the disparities around the world, you can only imagine how much you've got to adjust and what you've got to allow for. And I think it's a wonderful theme. It's a good starting point. I'm not sure how we get there, but equity is a wonderful word because it goes about equalizing things instead of starting off with, oh, everybody's equal. We take into account that we're not.
Have you ever faced gender inequality in your life? If so, how did you deal with it?
My first taste of recognizing that there might be different expectations of girls from boys was when I was preparing to go to college. And my father insisted that I go to college because he would always say, I want you to be able to take care of yourself. And it was only later that he said to me, after I finished, some of his buddies laughed at me for sending you to college. They said, man, why are you wasting money sending a girl to college? And it kind of hurt, and yet it made me feel good that I had not disappointed him in finishing. But that was the first time I really was conscious of male, female, girl, boy. And it was from my father that it meant so much to me that he saw the difference and he treated us differently. But he still wanted me to be my best. And then after I got into corporate America, I was in management with a large insurance company. And needless to say, I was the only one that looked like me. And there were several, and I was over several states in underwriting. And there were several young men that came in under me. And you could feel the tension. And even from the division manager felt that some of the decisions I made regarding the work of certain males was unfair or improperly evaluated. And I was told by someone else in confidence, he doesn't think you should be in that position. It should be a male, and preferably one that does not look like me. And I resolved at that point to work harder, to make sure I stuck with the rules, make sure I knew my game. And I think that's the only way, and it's not that you have to compete with men. Never tried to be a man, but you hold your ground. And that's what I had to learn to do, was to hold my ground. And that's hard to do when those around you think you shouldn't be in that spot, that because you're a woman, you don't need to be there.
If there was one thing you would change about yourself, not physical, what would it be?
Oh, where do I start? The one thing I get all the time, the constant feedback, is my fastidiousness. I have been known to expect excellence, to strive for perfection. I tend to be a neat freak, just little things like that. I don't like disorder. I don't like, nobody likes chaos, but just order, planning, organization, those kind of things I tend to be a stickler for. And I think I put extra pressure on myself by being so. And so if I could lighten up just a little bit, it's okay if it's not quite right, or I'll let it slide this time. If I could do that, that would be a good thing.
Do you feel women devalue themselves? What piece of advice would you give them, if so?
I think sometimes we do. I think we listen to other people, we let them get in our heads, and we start to play back what they said about us, or embody the negative feedback that we get about women. The one thing I've never liked is to be lumped into a giant category with everybody else. And I think when you let other people devalue you and you buy into that, that's where we go wrong. And I would say to anyone, know who you are, know whose you are, know what you stand for, know what you want in life. And when the naysayers come, you can rebuff it. It's that resistive mindset that I mentioned earlier. You don't let them get to you that way. You say, I am, and you square your shoulders off and straighten your back. Not in a rude, ugly way, but you proclaim who you are, who God made you, and just deal with it. It's their problem, not yours.
Share one thing women of all ages can do to strengthen their bond and understand how important they are in society.
The one thing I think women tend to do is to criticize each other more than we should. We should form that sisterhood, that bond that unites us. Find those things that we have in common. There's strength in numbers, there's strength in unity. Learn from each other. Be a mentor. Be mentored. You can always learn from somebody else. Somebody else does something especially well, let them know that. And maybe it's something you can use in your life. And say, I really would like to spend some time with you learning that. There are many ways that we can support each other. And we don't have to bicker and fight amongst ourselves. Find out what works and embrace it, and learn that that's your sister and treat them as such.
What is one parting piece of guidance you'd like to share with our viewers?
I would say when it comes to guidance, know who you're following. Make sure you're getting your information from someone you respect. I read a quote that said, men give advice and God gives us wisdom and instructions. So you want to be sure that if you're getting advice, it lines up with the wisdom of God. Because he says if you lack wisdom, ask him and he'll give it to you. So you don't want to get your information from just any place. I would say I'm pretty strong-willed, and I'm hesitant to follow anybody who does not walk according to the Word of God. And so you got to know where you're getting your information from. Don't be guided just by something that looks good, sounds good, everybody's doing it. There's danger in the crowd mentality. So don't be afraid to stand out and to seek good advice. And find somebody who's doing what you want to do or has been where you want to go. They can help you. A lot of things I do well, and there's some things I've never done. So I'll be happy to help you with those things I know how to do. And you would be okay asking me information on that subject. But if I don't know it, haven't done it, I might not be the best one. So know where you're getting your information from.
Thank you, Miss Shirley. It's been an honor with speaking with you today. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of Strong Women's Month.